Well, Heather, I'm glad to be here with you and to talk about this great new curriculum. I'm really thankful and proud of the work that you've done putting this together. This is great. I'm loving it, and I'm really looking forward to see how it impacts the folks at St. Gabriel's, and who knows, even maybe further beyond. So it's going to be exciting to see what God does with this. I loved what you did with this. Most people want to start with the law. They want to start with maybe the New Testament, but you went all the way to the beginning. Why did you do that?
Well, the Bible is this big, beautiful story, right? And sometimes we take it apart. But when we talk about redeeming why we give, gosh, it's really important to kind of start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Start at the beginning of like how we were made and what we were made for. And oftentimes we don't really connect those two things when it comes to the topic of giving.
Right. We really don't think about that when we look back at creation. We just kind of skim through it. And,
That's right.
But there are some very specific descriptions that God gives of humanity.
Yes.
And what we're called to do and be.
Yes.
Now, through this curriculum, you had this progression that started with why, but it was the why, the
what,
and the how. And it seems like a lot of times we just get wrapped up in the how.
Right. We do.
And so tell me about that.
Well, first of all, I didn't invent the why, what, how, right? There's many professionals out there who understand that to get to the nitty gritty of something, we just got to go basic with people. Why are we here? What are we supposed to do? And how are we supposed to do it?
How are we going to get it done?
Right?
Yeah.
And we start at how because sometimes that's the easiest. That's the easy button, right? Because the real work is really kind of understanding and getting into the deep understanding of, wow, God has created us to give. And it's this beautiful reciprocal relationship between God and us.
Right, it's a reflection. We're images, we reflect His giving.
Yes.
That's beautiful, yeah.
Yes. And in the hopes that, at some point God goes, okay, I want to be in this relationship with you. I want you to reflect my character, but now I want you to take it to a whole new level. I want you to reflect it to one another.
Right.
And, do some really hard things. I call it the big task. In the curriculum, because it is a big task.
Well, and it sounds like the way you're describing it actually reflects so much more than just money. It's really how we're just generous with our lives all throughout the day.
Yes.
And how we deal with people in the checkout line, or when we bump into somebody on the street. Generosity really shapes who we are.
Yes.
And how we reflect to the world.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And when we are made in the image of God, and the people watching this will be able to kind of dive in, I hope, to kind of understanding what the image of God means, right? That there's this verbal action to it, that we have this thing that we're supposed to do, and I'm not going to give it away what that object is I describe, but then there's this sense of we also kind of are like representatives of God.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's this twofold part to that we actually are given a blessing from God to go out and do this big task. And He gives us the ability to do it, of course, through the work of Christ and through the power of the Spirit.
Well, I'm really excited for people to see this.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear their feedback and how it's impacting them. And I'm just really thankful for you taking the time out of your schedule to put all this together. And so let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. Enjoy. Hi there, and I am so delighted for you to be a part of this new curriculum, Redeeming Why We Give. And you just had an opportunity to listen into Father Rob and I talking about this first module and where we're going next. So I'm excited to bring this to you, and I certainly hope this brings a resonance and really lands with you with regard to understanding giving and the context of our Christian faith. I'm so excited for you to be here. Let's jump right in. Hi, everybody. It's Heather again, and we're going to get ready to get into Module 1 of Redeeming Why We Give. But first, I want to just take you on a roadmap so you see where we're going over the next 4 weeks. So there are 4 modules to Redeeming Why We Give, and each week a module will be released over the next 4 weeks. This week, we're going to be talking about our why, understanding our created purpose. Next week, we're going to be talking about Module 2, Recollecting Giving in the Old Testament. Module 3, we will be talking about reframing giving in the New Testament. And then the 4th module, it will be a conclusion and a wrap-up and a summary of sorts of the first 3 modules. So let's get ready to jump into Module 1. Our why, understanding our created purpose. So I want you to think about the mission at St. Gabriel's. A mission statement is a really important way for us to understand what our church is about. And I think there are 3 questions that are really important to ask when we're trying to understand our mission or trying to craft a mission statement or get a sense of what is our mission and what does it mean to us. We need to ask 3 questions. The first question is, why are we here? What are we supposed to do? We are humans. Why are we here? What is our purpose? And then the second question inevitably comes, what are we supposed to do? And the third question is, how will we do it? So thinking about those 3 questions, I'm going to add a little bit more language to each of those statements in order to get a vibe about what we would like to shoot for at St. Gabriel's. So our why. Why are we here? Well, we are gratefully living our why. That means is that we show up with a heart of gratitude of what God has done for us, what God is doing in our community and in our church and in the world. Why are we here? We're going to be gratefully living into that why. We'll talk about the why throughout the modules, but what's important is we want to be gratefully living it. Next, we're continually clarifying our what. What are we supposed to do? You know, that little lights, all those lights in this person's hands, you know, Christmas lights are beautiful when they're on display, right? Except when we have to pull them out of all the totes in the attic and try to untangle those lights. Kind of a bit of a chaos and mess, right? But when we hang them up, oh, they're beautiful and inspiring. So we want to continually clarify our what. In other words, we have this light. How are we going to use this light in order to achieve God's purpose at St. Gabriel's? And then finally, we're going to be consistently modeling our how. How will we do it? We will consistently model our how. You know, people learn to trust churches and institutions and companies because they consistently show up in the same way for the same purpose. This is really important for us to translate the love of God. If we consistently model how we share that love of God. Okay, there's the big 3. So let's dive in to gratefully living our why, created for a purpose. We are created for a purpose and made in God's image. So in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. This is from the first sentences of Genesis in the Bible. What we discover is part of our understanding of ourselves is recognizing that God desires to bring order out of disorder, right? So that's important for us to kind of hold in our minds about our why. Next, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Again, God is bringing order out of disorder. Now we're going to dive more into the creation concept and talk a little bit more about that in the specifics, but I want you to get this big picture of it. We're going to talk about it more in Module 2, but with regard to gratefully living our why is aligned with God's why. What does He desire? Now, this is our big creation mandate verse. This is where our mission statement was born from, that we were created for a purpose. The Bible says we are made in the image of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And from Genesis chapter 1 again, we're in verses 26 through 28. Then God said, "Let us make humans in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So, God created humans in His image. In the image of God, He created them, male and female, He created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish, over the sea, and over the birds of the air, and every living thing that moves upon the earth." So the first thing I want to remind everyone about is the first chapters of Genesis are written in Hebrew poetry. So there are words that are repeated over and over again in the beginning chapters of Genesis, not to be redundant, but because it was built in a Hebrew poetic structure. Okay? So don't get too lost in the repetition of certain sentences, like every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. They were looking for a very specific structure in order to explain how creation happened, almost from like an artist's point of view. I want you to draw attention to the words I have in purple. This is where I'd like for you to focus. So God said, "Let us make humans in our image." Our is plural. So God is saying, I am three. I am Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but I am one, but three, the Trinity. "And according to our likeness, and let them have dominion." In other words, humans are made in this image of God to almost appear like God. I'm going to break that down more coming up next. And then humans have a responsibility. When we think about dominion, sometimes we see it as we take power over, but the Hebrew word is more about we take responsibility for creation. Again, we are created in His image. He created us male and female. And then God blessed us, blessed humans, to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion. Okay. Now, the word image has two meanings. The first meaning is this: who we are like and what we do. We are to be like little mirrors reflecting the character and nature of God. Now, yes, it's a disco globe, and a disco globe has hundreds of little mirrors on it. And our purpose is to reflect the light of God all over the world. So if you've ever seen a disco globe just kind of hanging there with not much of a light source, it reflects a little bit, but its whole purpose is really to be more like this, right? That we have this light source and we can take this light and we reflect it all over the world, every room we walk into, when we're at work, when we're in the grocery store, when we're in line somewhere. This is our purpose. This is what we are like, and this is what we do. We are to reflect the light and character and nature of God to the world. That's number one. Number two is we are to represent God. I want you to think more of a noun here. The disco globe is an action verb, but this is a noun. We represent God. We are little representatives of God in our daily lives. Now I have a picture of the Statue of Liberty here. And let me just kind of help you understand why I use that image. So the Statue of Liberty represents something. You'll see here there's this little funny looking equal signs. It doesn't mean the Statue of Liberty equals freedom. It means the Statue of Liberty is like freedom. It represents freedom. So therefore, humans do not equal God, but we are like God. We represent God, okay? So what we see here right away is this is our why. We were created to be these disco globes, just reflecting the love and light of God all over the world, everywhere we go. We were reflecting his character and his nature. It's an action. This is how we show up. This is what we are like. This is what we do. And then the second understanding of image of God is who we represent. We are little representatives of God in our daily lives. Okay? All right. Now, let's dive into continually clarifying our what. We are called to the big task. Now, given the big task is fulfilling God's purpose for creation. So let's talk about the big task. So the big task is, number one, we are to reflect and represent God's character, love and care for all creatures and the earth. We are to multiply and fill the earth, have kids, expand Eden. We are also, number three, to bear the responsibility for all of creation. This is the first go, to bring order to the disorder of the world. So just a visual so you see what I'm talking about with the big task. God's heart here is to bring order out of disorder. We be empowered by God and blessed by God to go and be this, to bring order to disorder in the world by being disco globes and being representatives of God. Okay. Now, last, consistently modeling our how, loving the world with grace. Now, God is calling St. Gabriel's to fulfill the big task by bearing the redemptive image of Christ to a broken world. Now, let's break that down a little bit. Pause. Anytime you see this screen, it means that I need to take a time out. There's a small little detail that requires a little bit of explanation. So we just need to hit pause on our current journey into discovering our how, because we have this really important detail that we need to discuss. And this is going to happen a couple of times in the other modules. So now you know, oh, we're taking a little detour and then we will resume the journey. Along the way in Genesis, humans hit a roadblock. The Garden of Eden was wonderful. And then humans made a grave error. I like to call it the apple incident. And this apple incident kind of stayed with them because this is how sin entered the human equation. This is how sin entered the human experience. So this apple incident kind of changed everything. And it could seem as if that the big task was like over because of this apple incident. But that's not true. Though humans had to leave the Garden of Eden, and though they had to head into creation, and though they would carry with them the thought of the apple incident in their heads and in their hearts, God's blessing for humans fulfilling the big task is remaining. God's heart to bring disorder to order will be accomplished through humans. It's never going to change. So, being aware of that, we're going to resume our route. So, consistently modeling our how, we're back to understanding that God has called St. Gabriel's to the big task. all of us with our little Apple incident thoughts above our heads, right? Humans are tasked to do this, and St. Gabriel's has been uniquely chosen to bear the redemptive image of Christ to a broken world. So, what does that really mean? Well, first, participating in creation, Jesus is the God-man, living amongst us as the perfect reflection, perfect representative, dying on the cross to repair the damage of sin, the Apple incident, to restore us individually, our community, and the world. And from the beginning, the big task is go. Bringing the redemptive image of Christ to a broken world started at the beginning. God's plan at creation was that we go and represent God and reflect the love of God to the world, like those disco globes. This go is enabled by the work of Jesus on the cross and empowered by the Spirit. Now, our work is to continue this task, carry the good news of Jesus into a world that is broken, and this is accomplished through our gifts, time, talent, and treasures. So here we are. Consistently modeling our how is bringing order to disorder in alignment with the heartbeat of God, because we reflect Him. We reflect Him in how He shows up, His character, His nature, and we represent Him as His little representatives on earth. So here's our summary, wrapping it up. Gratefully living our why, we are created for a purpose to reflect and represent the love of God. We are continually clarifying our what by clarifying, fulfilling the big task. This is what we are here to do. And consistently modeling our how is through our unique mission statement. So that's it, folks. And next week, we're going to be diving into recollecting giving in the Old Testament. And I am so thankful for you being here with me, and I will see you all next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week. See you next time.